So yeah, hello. I think we are live on streaming. So hello everybody. This is the Node.js security team meeting. This is the last one from November. Today is the 21st of November, and we have an interesting agenda to discuss today. So first of all, do we have any announcements to make? Okay, I think no announcements. So next step in the agenda will be to go for the vulnerability review.
Yeah, I took a quick look and I don't see anything new in there, so I think no news is good news.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. From my side, I was checking the scorecard. Let me have a look and put the right PR. Yeah, if you have a look to it, there is like some decrease in some of the repos, like almost like 0.8 and 0.9 points. But those are not because the repo itself, it's because how we collecting the data, and sometimes we don't collect all the data, so that's why we get less points, basically. So yeah, I'm thinking on how we can make that more resilient. But in the meantime, so far nothing to do from outside. So yeah, that's kind of okay. If we are happy with that and we can get some approvals, I will land that PR. Well, I think I put the link to the issue, not to the PR. Fantastic. Let me go with this is actually the PR. Okay, yeah, and let me also pass in the chat. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, then don't see nothing in the agenda, but that might be book in the document. Let me see if I can find this on the. No, I don't have it on the
I
repo
think it,
itself.
yeah, we can take a look.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess that could be right, but we can always continue to work through like the the security, I forget what we're calling it exactly, like the threat, the person
yeah,
person threat model, right? Like that's
yeah, yeah. I think that's the current name, probably. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me see. What is the
actually,
issues I
yeah,
can
there's a bunch of
access?
stuff interesting. Yeah, I don't, that's interesting. Things didn't show up on the agenda for some reason.
Yeah, there are like maybe two new things, like add warning for the end of life versions.
Yep.
I think, yeah, we can might discuss this new two. I mean, because I see, let me pass the link to the what I see. So yeah, basically I see like, yeah, Node.js maintenance thread model. That definitely is something that we want to work on. Audit build process for dependencies. I don't think that's relevant today. Abort when vulnerability flag. Not sure if that was any progress made in October, but there are two that might have some progress, which is the issue 1025, which is the extend security reporting for LTS lines and their lifetimes.
I
Yeah,
think
so I
that,
added I
oh,
added this to the agenda.
Yeah,
Um, so the issue that we have found is that most companies that use Node are not aware that the LTS lines have security vulnerability. So
hmm
because they don't have these associated, so we were looking at the CVEs like from Node 16 because at ELF we work with these versions and we realized that there are no CVEs associated with 16 or 14, and that is a bit weird because in fact there are a lot related
yeah,
to LLHTTP, OpenSSL, 1.1.1.
yeah,
There are so many things that are in fact insecure, but this is not like security scans do not reflect this. So people are not aware that they're using something that is insecure. So
yeah,
I think there have been some suggestions. One that I think could like Rafael has proposed to add a warning. Also, we could issue a CVE. I think the low effort one is to issue a CVE when we go like when we move a line to end of life, so that at least there is one CVE. So like people will always have the red thing on the scanners and will be aware of it. Otherwise, like nobody will know that those are
yeah.
insecure.
That's
Yeah,
true, right? Because
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Michael.
No, I was gonna say I like the CVE one is quite. I think that what's appealing to me about that is it's quite low effort on our part, right? Which is nice.
Yeah, I think it's appealing, but I see one problem. I mean, as a low-hanging fruit is a good option because I mean, right now the situation is like nobody knows that they might be potential vulnerabilities, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So if we are at a CVE saying like, look, from now on, this is you alone, right? So that's good, but the problem with that is people might just go and check, active CVEs for the LTS from that day. Nothing happened. They just put some rules in place, like ignore this specific CVE because we already check it, right? But
Yes,
actually, we
but
never
then if
report
they
more,
do
right?
that, they lose compliance if they are in a like environment that requires security, like
Oh,
banking.
true. Yeah, because
And
they're
I think
companies. Yeah.
like yeah, and like because they are not secure and they
Yeah.
should not use it. So like that makes the difference.
I
Yeah.
think it would also like it would in fact um make people, let's see, what am I going to say? It would like if you ignore that, usually like in an organization anyway, you're going to have to get like some sort of exception and those exceptions would be reviewed. So it would still be like something that would help
Yeah.
like the organization see, oh, we've got a risk. Did we accept the risk? Yes, okay. But usually, like I know for us, it would be like, yes, but only for some amount of time, right? Versus forever.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, because adding CVEs for all branches is going to be a nightmare in terms of doing the test and so on, right? So that's not in the table. Just to give everybody the view,
Yep.
for who is watching this, is like it's going to be hard for us to, test every CVE again on every branch over the time because we do more branches. I mean, we do more majors, and it's going to be like an endless work, right? So yeah, discarded
We
that
just can't do
option.
that, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. I mean,
we've said, we just don't, once they're end of life, we just don't look at them. You're on your own.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I know that like, like even this suggestion of like doing a single CV came from a security researcher like that I talked to a number of years ago, and they're like, "Would you consider this?" And I'm like, "We might if somebody, propose
Yeah.
it." Didn't get proposed, but
Yeah.
like,
Now is the time. Yeah.
yeah, maybe now's the time, and it's like it's pretty low effort. We might get some complaints, like if we, I guess the idea of doing it when they're at the next time there's a security release is maybe a good sort of middle of the ground versus immediately when it goes end of life.
Yeah.
Because there's always the argument like, well, you don't know that it's vulnerable, right? But it's more like, well, we don't know that it isn't. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I
um,
think I think adding the CVE will be a good option. The only thing, I mean, my only concern there is like in terms of how we issue the CVE. Do we have any CWE to link with this or something like that justify this?
I think Marco suggested one that makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, there is one for like
Yeah, the one
outdated
that
things, right?
yes, that says that the product relies on outdated software and
Fantastic.
so outdated components, which is true, for
Yeah.
example, for 16, 14, etc.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't
And
see
it will
people
not be
complaining.
updated. So
The only question I have is how do we assign a version to it, right? Like, do we assign it to all versions? Um,
I will
yeah, I
suggest to
would
go for
assign
that
it.
line. Oh, sorry,
What I
Michael.
would do is, yeah, what I would do is basically assign it. Like we take the last version of the LTS and we put the Semver range as everything. Like for each major line, we say, okay, 16, 14, 12, 10, and we create the CVE for all of them. Just one CVE that uh, gets all the release lines for the first time, and then
yeah.
every time a new version goes end of life, we make it part of the like end of life thing and only target that release line.
And the range would be like from say it's 14, from 14.0 all the way to the last release, right?
So what we could like what I have seen, like what we do right now when we create a CVE is we specify each major release line. So for example, we create a CVE and we say, okay, this affects 16, this affects 14, this affects, like we do it manually because our server doesn't cover all the major behind. Like if we say everything before 18, it will only be for that
Right,
18
right.
line.
But I meant more like we actually are more precise. We will say like, 14.7.2 to 14.8.3 is affected, right? Like we actually give a range. So I think we would need to say like 14.0.0 to whatever the last number is, and then 15.0,
Yes.
like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, that is correct. Or we can
I,
just say like equal minor equal of the latest one, and that will that will put in the range everything before in that release line, I think.
because like another option which is in the middle, which is just sort of I thought would be good we discuss this, like we could just set it to the last version. So like if you're actually updating, then you would get the warning, right? But if you pinned it the very, very first one, you wouldn't suddenly get a CVE, right? I personally think like it probably is best to do the whole range, but I just thought like that's something that, we need to document and agree, I think. It's just like in terms
Yeah,
of
I
how
mean,
we'll start to see
yeah,
these new CVs pop up.
yeah. I think this is more of an implementation detail that we can discuss. But,
Yep.
but like generally, I think we should go forward with this idea because like the fact that people don't know that there are CVs associated with their own version is extremely dangerous.
Yep.
And I didn't know about this until I started researching. Because like even though there are CVs associated with internal Node.js dependencies, so for example, like OpenSSS has the
Yep.
Undish has a CV, LLHTTP has a CV, but this is not reflected.
Yeah, we basically have said you're on your own with the end of life one. So I think like, so yeah, I don't hear anybody here saying bad idea. Might be good to get like TSC just as an FYI, like, hey, this is what we're proposing. And also I'd be wondering if it would be good to get some feedback in from the people in the collaboration space. Right?
Yeah.
Like just if somebody, they might have more a different ecosystem view, and it's like, hey, well, we tried this over here and everybody it lit the world on fire, so we shouldn't do that, right? Or they may say, well, that's a good idea. I don't know why we didn't think
Yeah.
of that, right? Like,
Yeah, I think it's a good option. Also, if we bring that to the foundation, we can include that as part of the CNA discussions that we have right now. So probably we are going to recommend, I mean, if we agree on this, probably we will recommend this to others, right? Take jQuery,
right,
for
that could be like,
example.
here is the standard thing that we do is like, yeah,
Yeah,
when you declare it end of life, you issue a single CV, boom, and yeah.
yeah.
No, that, yep.
That's important. Yeah, I think that's good. And I think also, for example, Express might be aligned with this idea too when we
Yep.
deprecate like 4, which is going to happen in the future. That might be a good option. And we can deprecate the old ones, like 3, 2, and 1, and so on. So yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say, so there's general agreement from those in the meeting that single CV on EOL is a good idea. And then I'm going to say, Ulysses, can you get feedback from
Yeah.
we'll get some feedback from those in the OpenJS security collaboration space. And then we should probably also, share a proposal with the TSC.
Okay, this
Anything
is
more,
was
Marco, on that one? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was about to say like it was a nice
Yeah.
discussion. If we should jump to the next one.
I'm here with the how.
Yeah, I think we have another issue, which is like add warning on all versions, which actually I think is the same thing, right? But just for our visibility. Okay, okay.
That's the one I actually added to the agenda because I think that came
Fantastic.
out of the other one of extending security lifetimes.
Yep. Okay, okay. Sounds good. So yeah, I think we might jump to the Node.js maintainers thread model. That's actually the official name, I guess. Okay, let me share the issue and let me open the hackmd file with my. Let's see if I can make changes. I'm not sure.
I think you have to log in, but it's just
Yeah,
log in. Did you paste the link in?
I think I paste the link to the issue, but not to the. Okay, let me. Here it is.
Ah,
The
thanks.
link.
Okay, right.
Let me log in and see if I can make changes. It's funny because when you log it in, you don't get redirected to the to the file you were editing. So that's weird. Okay. Um. Yeah. Let's see where we are. I think we have been on threads, right? So, I mean, if I recall correctly, the access per group was done. That was completed, right?
I
And
think
then
so.
we
Yeah,
are.
I think we were like now working through the individual threats and like
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. That makes sense. So far, I think we cover the malicious code in Node.js code base. Okay, because I see also next one, which is malicious binary generation in Node.js release slash build. Let me fix that. This build process. Node.js slash build process. Release build processes, right? Yeah, I think that one is not yet started, right? I
yeah,
mean,
I
I
think
see the
so.
definition, but not the asterisk on the places, right? So okay. Um, so let's start by seeing what's okay. So hacker one, I think it's not applicable as far as I
Agree.
know. Let me let me just add the line and the non-applicable. Okay, fantastic. Mitre, I think is the same thing. They don't have any access to
Agree.
releases, so that's clean. Private, private Node.js, private, I think this might be. Okay, I have an idea. Let's go fast through all of them and let's discard first and let's go later with the ones that might be a little bit trickier. Okay, so
Right. The I'm just thinking like we look at the first one as like malicious code in the Node.js code base.
mhm.
I think we might want to say malicious release binary generation.
Hmm. Actually, true. I think the description was updated. My fault. Okay.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just like I'm just like because we don't
Yeah.
want to recover the same thing, right? Like if you can get malicious code in, obviously you can get malicious
Yeah.
things
I
out
mean,
there.
yeah, that's true. Because the first scenario is like someone just add a malicious code to the repo, right? So you
Right.
basically from that you got polluted, right? On this stage, it's like the repo is clean, but
Exactly.
somehow you manage to pollute the next step in the chain, which is CI, basically, right? Or releases, right? So that can be another option. So
Right.
let's see. So in this scenario, we assume that malicious actor will include malicious code, malware dependencies, whatever, in a continuous integration process, okay, using a specific tooling or by polluting specific machines, agents. That can be. Both
But
options make
I
sense.
think we might want to update that to like polluted. Did we have a list of these or I'm trying to remember if we had a list of these or we
I
were
think
now
we are
making
making cases.
Okay, making the cases, right? So like
Yeah,
in that case, I think we might want to say like we'll include malicious code in the release binaries, you know, malicious
yeah.
code in the release binaries available in the release binaries available to on through
Hmm.
the node.js.org downloads, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to say how, right? Like,
Well, you have the vectors, so we can include
yeah.
that in the
Okay,
vector
right.
say
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Okay, no, good point. Yeah.
yeah, so okay, so that's clear. Like the source code is clean, the binary is polluted.
Right.
How that can happen, right? Vector. So someone need to use privileged access to GitHub in order to add, modify, pollute Git history for the tooling build repositories, like Ansible scripts and so on. Okay, that makes sense, right? If I
Yep.
pollute Ansible, I can include some binary, say like, look, and in this build step, you add this flag or we do things, right? Okay, that makes sense.
And even
Pollute
like we
directly
have the
machines.
select compiler, which like if we're running that to set the compiler on the release machine.
Yeah,
If that does something extra, then yeah. So yep.
yeah, someone can, I think, yeah, someone can manipulate the pipeline definitions
Yep.
on the CI directly and so on, right? So pull out
Yep.
directly machines. That's another vector that might affect us. This I don't think is going to affect. This is a good question for the build team. Like, if I add a malicious machine in testing environment, right? I think when we do the releases, we do the build clean, right? We don't take any input from the build
Right. Like,
testing
yeah.
infrastructure, right? Okay, so yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So it'd be the release pipelines that would like
Yeah,
the
will be
release infra,
limited.
not the test infra. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, manipulate the CA release pipelines. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Swapping out release binaries, that's something that can happen with a super high level SSH privilege level. Um, yeah, and also that's a very fair point, Michael. We might also include like mention to R2 because now we are like doing the migration, so just to take that in account, like.
Right. So it could be like, do we have, but that might be, yeah, swapping out binaries. Okay, modifying, right? Yeah, no, I think that's right. Modifying I think I would just say like, if you can modify our Cloudflare configuration,
Hmm. That's true. If you change the DNS, we change everything, right? Yeah.
because you could
Yeah.
basically just, if you modify that, you could just point it to somewhere different, right?
Yeah. You just have just a different IP and you mess
Yeah.
everybody. That's true. Yeah, I think we don't. Oh, yeah, another one, Michael. I don't remember who own. I don't think it's the build team. The ones who own the Node.js Docker images.
Right. So that's, I wonder if we want to call that out separately.
That might be separately. Yeah, let me add a note separately. Let me make a note here like let me add a note here like other things. So that's easy
Maybe
to
it's
add.
like, I could just add like a title down there below. Like that would be right. Yeah. Like it's
Official
almost
Docker
like,
image, right? Yeah.
uh, so, modify or malicious binary it's almost like corrupted Docker containers, right?
Well, it's malicious images directly, right? Rather than
Docker images. Yeah. I would,
yeah.
we can,
Okay,
yeah. Anyway, yeah.
that's a good.
Okay. That's a good one. But I think, yeah, that
Yeah.
one's probably worth breaking out because otherwise it'll be,
Yeah, it will be more complex. Okay,
yeah.
that's cool. I'm thinking, okay, so we covered the DNS, we cover machines, we cover pipelines, and we cover access to resources. Okay, so that's clear the vectors, right? We don't see, I mean, there is not a lot. Well, one of the vectors might be like impersonating someone from the build organization, that can happen as well. Because in this case, it's actually quite personal, right? Because most of the credentials that we use for things are like, I mean, SSH keys, PGP keys for the
Mhm.
releases and stuff like that is a stuff that is owned personally and not by the organization, right? So there is a vector there for a stolen laptop, these kind of things. If
I
that's a
think
vector,
that
I'm not very sure.
I think that that's sort of like I would include that as part of like, hey, if people who are in the build team have access,
Yeah,
then there's lots of different ways that then like if their access could be then extended, like if
yeah,
they
true.
you know so I don't think I would list it separately because it would probably be part of
Yeah,
every one of these,
that's
right?
true.
But that is
That's
a
true.
good it's a good angle to think about is like once we get down to like these people have this critical access, we have some things like, okay, well, we've got like 2FA turned on, so that's good. But like,
Yeah,
should there be some other requirement on build team members to say you must do what, right?
yeah. Like, yeah,
Based
to
on the
having a
risks that
process.
we see, like we can come up and say, well, these people all have access to be able to
Yeah,
put in malicious code. Do we trust? Is that
yeah,
group too big, too small? But
yeah,
also,
yeah,
like, is it that we need something special to then help them be
yeah.
secure, right?
I think that's a different kind of attack, right? It's the same
Yeah.
way as if you have a credit card. I mean, we trust you in the way like how you use the credit card, but if your credit card got stolen,
Right.
then you inherit, I mean, that person inherit whatever you have in the credit card right at the time. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you need to have a process in place saying like, look, disable this card right now, right? So
Right.
yeah, but that's a different thing and happen to or potentially to anyone, right? Because
Yeah.
it's depending on the level. Okay, so that's a
Can you
different attack.
promote Richard? I just noticed he's
Oh,
there.
yeah, I was not tracking the participants,
Yeah.
which is
No, me neither. I just
not
noticed.
nice, and I don't get any alerts. So yeah, let
No,
me
I know it would
promote.
be nice if it popped up like, hey, you've got a
Yeah,
new person waiting, but
yeah, I think this is because this is like a webinar Zoom rather than the regular Zoom. So also it's changing also the way you see the people later on in YouTube because, hey, Richard, sorry.
hello.
Okay, so this is so far good. Okay, so yeah, vectors I think are more or less clear. Did you want to say something, Richard? Because you have been there in the lobby for a while, so maybe you wanted to make some points.
Uh, I was watching YouTube and I joined halfway through. So yeah, it's mainly that the release pipeline has changed a lot. Um, so in
Yep,
addition to like, so I think you did mention like the R2 and staging binaries on R2, but
yep,
there's now a whole extra bit of infrastructure in front of that. I think Aaron did post in the issue from the website teams perspective of the stuff on their end. So, the website's now on Vercel, but the download requests are going through Vercel now, and I think are being rerouted to R2 actually through the worker, the Cloudflare worker that presents like
mm-hmm.
the listings and things. So there's now layers in front of, that there's
Yep,
the build infrastructure stuff where the binaries get generated on Jenkins and then uploaded to both DigitalOcean and R2 storage. But then in actual to get that to users, there are other layers which are outside of build control, which are now on that path between, a user saying, I want this version of Node and actually getting the binary. So
So I
yeah,
think you're
I
saying
guess on that
people
note,
with website infra access could
yeah,
now, yeah.
yeah, that well, if the threat here is can someone substitute, a bad binary into the process somewhere, there's now more places that can happen. Yeah,
yep,
I think at my
that's true.
point. So before, like maybe 1 or 2 years ago, where it
Yep,
was like build would get the binary onto a DigitalOcean droplet and then we'd have a Cloudflare CDN in front. That was fairly simple in terms of the number of teams that had access to be able to
mm-hmm.
change things. And it's not end of the world bad, but it's a lot more people now have
Yep,
access to different parts. So it's not just like one team has access to everything. It's now there are well, maybe that's a good thing that you know getting
yep,
onto one team doesn't give you access to everything, but at the same time, being able to compromise any part of that process could result in a compromised binary ending up just automatically flowing all the way through. So, there's various ways you can try and intercept this, but I think just in terms of if you're trying to evaluate where the potential attack vectors are, then the surface area is much bigger now than it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Richard. Also, I added an additional point on the comments, like below part of other attacks to explore, because right now, for example, we have like instructions on the website on how to download Node.js, like in terms of package manager thing, right? So you
Oh,
have some cool commands and stuff like that.
that
So that might be
that's
also another option.
that's a completely additional risk that we've now taken on.
Yeah,
So
that's a separate one. But again, yeah, that opened a new a new door. Okay.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I was thinking like in the Node.js official website, right? We have some steps to get Node.js running on your systems, and like if you're using Linux, you have to cool this and that and so on. So you just can basically, I mean, someone can basically change those, right? So you just installing the wrong node, right? Basically, so just by changing the documentation and not changing anything on the binaries, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Ulysses is alluding to the fact that the project made a conscious decision that the website now no longer just directs you to the official binaries. It's directing you to version managers, whatever those blessed well, I don't know if blessed is the right word, but recommended version managers.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again, it's just additional places, attack vectors, which we may decide fall outside of the remit of what this working group can influence in terms of threat.
I think those.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
guess
those to
I think
start.
it's worth recognizing those that
Sure.
Yeah.
if we're telling people on the website that this is how you install Node, then again there might be additional places that if we're worried about compromised binaries, if there's now another layer that we don't control, then again that's another attack vector. I'm not saying that those are they may be quite have equal security to what we have, but it's just enumerating what are the potential attack vectors. And again, you might then say, well, maybe these we can't do anything about, but it's recognizing that it's not just these are, if we consider this, and this there's a secure pathway through to get the binaries in front
Yeah.
of users. It's like, here are all the possible ways that could be compromised. And some of them may be outside of as in the Node project's control.
Yep.
It's worth listing as some like other things, but I don't think
Yeah.
like the goal here is to come out and with any things that will tell us, do we need to take any action? Like in terms of our people, like do we need to reduce teams, reduce privileges? I think like that case, it's not going to have like any actionable thing on that, but it is. So I think that could have another, but we shouldn't necessarily. I don't think it necessarily affects like, hey, who has access to what? At least in the first. Otherwise, we're going to like expand to the scope of the world kind of thing.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
That is true. But I think, it is at least worth, like you said, maybe mentioning it as
Yep.
we're aware of it, but we're not going to consider it as part of this exercise.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, Node.js private, then not relevant. Node.js security release, I don't think is relevant, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just putting in.
Yeah, then secrets. Um, this can be tricky because we have the option to modify secrets as well, right? Most of the people that have access to read them can modify them. I mean, depend on the ledgers, right, that we have in place, but maybe modifying the secrets might affect somehow infrastructure decisions, right? If you replace one token by other, stuff like that might be.
Right, but I think here it's like, what's the minimum access needed, right? Like all you need is read.
Oh,
If you could read them, you can
yeah.
basically get on the machines, change the
Oh, yeah,
configuration
true.
stuff. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, read access is already a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Node.js,
don't consider
no.
I don't consider write access to be as big a problem as the read access.
Yeah.
Because you could write and change the secrets, but I don't think that would actually, there's very little risk that would actually cause, like, you wouldn't easily be able to substitute say, a machine of your choosing in place of an existing machine, because
Yeah, that's true.
that's in the public build repo. That's not in the secrets repo. I mean, I guess it's possible, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would focus more on the read access.
Yeah. Read access definitely.
If there's anything to consider at all for this, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Build.
I don't know how this fits into the modeling, but I guess something to consider is that we don't have a good story about rotating people out of the access. So,
Yeah.
you know, at least for this particular thing, for build, that if you were in the build working group and you had access to something, we don't have a good process for saying this project person is now no longer, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, working in the build working group. And yeah, I guess theoretically we should be going around rotating secrets, but we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Especially for the.
yeah,
Maybe not in the test environment that often, but in other environments, which is much more critical, right? So yeah, that's a true point.
but yeah, again, that's why this read access is like, once you get access once to read this and you're able to decrypt.
Yeah.
So at least there's like another layer of security here with the actual GPG encryption. But a combination of those, like you can break the encryption and you have access to the repository because it's a private repository.
Yeah.
That is like, yeah, if someone then has that, then you've then got the risk about that person protecting that and not themselves getting compromised. But I don't know how
Yeah.
projects can handle that. You just have to trust people to say, like, once we give people some access to something, we have to be reasonably confident that they will take reasonable steps to protect that, because otherwise you couldn't give anyone access to anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think also here, like Michael is feeling this, but in the infra test, while infra test is separated from the release machines, there is one case where it's a little bit tricky, which is the at least historically and currently the org infrastructure, because the org infrastructure is shared for test and releases. So while technically you might not be able to access the machine running itself, like the release machine, because you don't have the keys, you might swap that machine for another one with your own keys.
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, if you've got access to Walker, I presume you could do, you could, if you got directly into Walker, you could, make changes that are outside of the view
Oh,
of, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that was partitioned off precisely to avoid giving access to infra to the people that we were trying to gain at. So
Yeah.
the history there was that the Mac stuff was used to have the traditional split between build infra and release and test. And then I think it was the Orca stuff. It was like we wanted to give people access to Orca that were not at the time in build infra, but were had the time and the willingness and the trust to work on the Orca side, to set that all up. The stuff that was there in the beginning, not the stuff that was there before the current transition. So it was felt that rather than give them access to the full builder, it was partitioned off to be like infra Mac. So you are right that it gives you more access to than if you just had release or test access.
Yep.
But the idea then was that you didn't actually have access to the full build infra. So that was the reason that was partitioned off.
But that's not the CI, like that line that you just added in is for the Jenkins CI. So having access to the test Jenkins doesn't let you do that, but I think like the infra test would, right?
Yeah, infra would let you do it
Yeah,
probably.
sorry. I put it in the wrong line. Yeah, my fault.
Because we have
I was
infra
targeting
test
here.
and we have, so infra
Yeah,
test,
sorry.
and we've
Yeah.
said above that in terms of who has access to infra test, I'm trying to.
What are we considering here? Are we still considering the secrets repo, or are we moved on to the Jenkins discussion?
No, this is the infra, like the infra line that basically if you access to test machines,
Yeah.
you can affect the release machines
No.
for
So if you have access to the release machines, you can, but not if you have access to the test machines. Other than maybe fudging like the test results to give people false confidence in merging the releases. But the test infra is completely separate from the release infra, unless you can break cloud virtualization. But I think that's beyond our abilities to mitigate because we don't know how the so logically in cloud providers the release machines are separate from the test machines.
Sure.
Yep.
As to how that's actually implemented in the cloud provider, we have no visibility. So there's always, a very remote possibility that, if you could escape the hypervisor, that maybe you could get from like a test machine to a release machine, depending on how that's actually set up at the cloud provider. But it's not something we can actually.
Yeah, that's
Really
advanced.
mix
Very
I think
advanced.
we're talking about a different issue here. We're talking about
Yeah.
like there were people.
If you're saying if you've got access to the test machines, can you affect the releases? And I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah, that's a clear no. But I think that there is a scenario, for example, in the Orca case, where you
Yep.
actually can manage the infrastructure on Orca, right? So there's a level where you can just deploy your own machines and stuff. And as we share,
That's another access. That's not test access. That's its own category of access.
okay.
But I think maybe we should put that in with infra.
I think you could reasonably, if you want to bundle it together, bundle it with build infra rather than test, because you fundamentally for infra Mac. I mean, the clue is in the name infra, right?
Yeah, like everybody who has access
infra
to
-Mac,
Mac.
so those are infra level accesses.
Yeah. So our simplification is we just assume that they have access to everything.
Yeah.
Versus like we've made it smaller, but like the simplification for this process is they're basically infra people.
Yes. Yeah. I think so.
And there's not that many, I think, anyway,
Yeah.
that aren't. But yeah. Okay. So we would put it to like build infra would be yes, right?
Yep. Yeah. YouTube is not applicable. Zoom is not applicable. One password, I guess, just by getting right access, right? So you can start doing malicious things.
Yeah, I was just going to copy whatever the secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one password, I think you're going to have to consider that. Yeah, at some point we may put more and more secrets into.
Yeah. Also, you have a lot of the website related stuff rather than the built-in node because it was previously, right? But the
at the moment
vector.
that's true. I know Ryan would like to move more secret stuff to one password. So I think we just assume that one password, if you had access to that would give you access to things.
Makes sense.
Social media accounts, non-applicable. Emails, non-applicable. Build email might be tricky.
Yeah. I guess the social media accounts, it depends how you consider it. Again, it's like, I don't think you could redirect people if you had access to the social media accounts to download to download something that wasn't on the official channel.
That's
so
true.
Again, it's kind of like, I guess it's more in the realms of like the website. It's like the communication channel rather than instead of being able to directly affect the binary, but you could misdirect someone, which is a different kind of fundamentally for the users it might be the same, that you end up with a compromised binary, but I guess in terms of the risk it's a different one, which is one risk is, can you directly get onto the hardware and actually corrupt things in their locations that are the official locations, and then the other attack is, could you like typo squat or some sort of substitution attack, which is like you're misdirecting people to the wrong to an actual site that's not the official site but may look like one, or a sort of phishing scam or whatever you want to do. But yeah, I would say the social media things is a bit like the website access, which is like
I might think that would be useful to have as a separate problem, right? Like there's There's one where like you've actually the binaries that somebody goes and gets through the right channel
Yeah.
are not what they should be.
Yes.
I think that's quite different than, hey, you could social engineer people into downloading
Exactly.
wrong thing, right? So I think, yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think those should be separate, but I think that should also be
Yep.
considered that
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you
I
say
put it
social
in
media,
other
it's
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, we have a section in the other things where if you have any idea or something that doesn't fit before, just feel free to put there so we can revisit later on to make specific cases. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, that vector is super interesting, Richard. Yeah, asking the people.
I think that's just a general thing that we have to consider that, yes, from a
Yeah.
technical point of view, there are things we can, it's a bit like that discussion about the package managers. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, there are things we can control in terms of the stuff we look after, but that's not necessarily how the people that we're trying to protect actually engage with the project. So if people are looking at, other things to say, is a release available, then that's actually their first entry point into. And then underneath that, all that stuff is probably the stuff we're looking at here. And yes, we should definitely consider what we're considering now, and also, say this stuff is other stuff that is in a different section. But that other section is the way that a lot of users will come in and engage with the project. So if you're looking at, if this is the risk to mitigate affecting them, it's not just this, it is this in combination with other things.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that one we've got the malicious Docker images. We could possibly do that one next.
We have the last 7 minutes. Do we want to just create the titles for the next scenarios?
Sure, that would be, maybe in the time we have, that's a good idea.
So we have the malicious Docker images. That's a good one. Then we have stolen credentials scenarios, right? Someone who is not a malicious actor, but got laptop stolen, whatever, second, linked accounts to accounts, whatever, that can lead to actions, right? For example, in the social media, it's a good case, right? To use like a third-party software to, schedule tweets or whatever, and you end up sending tweets like, look, the release is not working nice today. Use this binary directly, right? So that's kind of things, right? That's a good one. Overwriting documentation with malicious stuff is another thing. Like very obvious when you install node.js, right? But we can go more complex and modify the API documentation to make, someone use vulnerable versions or whatever, that can be maybe a little bit more tricky, but.
I'm just. Well, like I added in the impairing the ability of the project to do day-to-day work. So like, we give levels of access where people could like just delete everything, right? And
delete all the repos. Yeah. That will be a very tough day. But yeah, definitely.
Right.
That's another scenario.
But I guess, well, yeah, I guess it's no. I presumably that's the sort of write access risk to.
Right.
Was there not one for like? I thought we already considered being able to modify the code in like the core repos.
Yeah, that was the first one, which is basically like
And
malicious code in the Node.js code base, right?
I mean, I guess you're right. You could go and delete, I suppose if someone went and, managed to get access to the TSC repo and deleted that. Well, actually, I don't know if that would cause, it would be annoying. I don't know if it would actually cause the project to grind to a halt.
No, but like if you deleted the main repo.
Yes, but I thought we'd already considered the access for that one.
Yeah.
Well,
one is like,
repos.
I mean,
are there other repos that we would consider that if you
Yeah.
deleted them, it would be catastrophic?
Yeah, But most of these repositories, even if you go deleted, you have like a grace period of 13 days
Well, I mean,
to
that's the
recover.
great thing about Git, right? As long as someone's checked out
Yeah.
something, you can probably get close to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but Git infrastructure is
I don't
different.
know, you know, if you do delete stuff, I don't know if GitHub themselves have any way of rolling things back. I don't know. I've never looked at it.
Yeah. Another one is destroying publication keys. That will be a nightmare. Yeah, like from Apple, stuff like that will be bad.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what else would somebody try and like the malicious code and then swapping the binaries and then
Yeah.
like the social engineering? Yeah, I could see that. Malicious code, I think probably like in our NPMs, we do publish some NPMs, so like that applies there as well. I guess the social engineering one may pull in a little bit. I guess the other part about your email with the aliases, like the build email alias is a little sensitive, but that on
Yeah.
its own isn't really going to let you do.
No, but can lock us out, right? The same. Yeah, for example, if you break the aliases, you cannot get to the Zoom links, right? Because you need like the second
Right.
factor, these
But we
kind of
could
things,
set
right?
that back, right? So that's like,
Yeah. Yeah, or you can restore the accounts, you know, so you change the email, stuff like that can be tricky depending on the service.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is what is the risk and how devastating, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, that would compromise. Like, you know, I don't think it was particularly like an attack, but the fact that we lost the calendar, you know, that was incredibly disruptive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
or destroying access
but
to Slack,
it's
for
on a
example.
scale, right? It's like it was very annoying,
Yeah.
but it didn't cause the whole project to stop. So it was disruptive, but not in the same way that like you said, if someone did manage to delete the core repo,
Yeah.
again, it would be a lot harder to recover that, I think. Not that it's impossible, but in terms of like just getting that back up and then getting everyone else synced back to
Yep.
what it was. So yeah, there's yeah, I guess it's like types of attacks. Like you said, it's like being able to corrupt things, being able to prevent access to things. Yeah.
I guess any other top level ones, like the sort of malicious code in the code base and then swapping out the binaries. We've got the Docker images we cover similarly, like NPMs. We got the similar things. The social engineering one, we were just talking about, like, we can go into details, but like all the things you could do to slow down the project, right? Like, any other like sort of high level categories of things like that that we would consider a risk when we give access to people, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what we actually give access to, because most of the stuff is via GitHub, apart from a few other things that we've listed.
if we should look at the CVE categories, CWE categories.
Yep. Oh, I have to
Yeah, okay,
leave.
we're at time, but
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
nice, super nice discussion. I will put here like next steps just to clarify. Okay, next steps. Okay, so that's clear. Okay, thank you so much. This was an awesome meeting.
yeah, great. Talk to you all.
Bye.